The rain was coming down hard that evening. Not the kind of gentle rain that makes you feel cozy indoors, but the angry type that soaks you through in seconds. 20-year-old Daniel was pedaling his old bicycle through the storm, his delivery bag strapped tight across his chest. His phone showed 9:47 p.m. Just 3 more deliveries and he could finally head home. His clothes were already drenched. The cheap raincoat he bought from the street market 2 years ago had more holes than fabric now. But Daniel didn't complain. He never did. Complaining wouldn't pay the bills or put food on the table for his mother and 2 younger brothers. As he turned onto Highway 15, a road that was usually busy but now completely empty because of the weather, something caught his eye. A car was parked on the side of the road with its hazard lights blinking. It wasn't just any car, though. Even in the rain and darkness, Daniel could tell it was expensive. The kind of car he'd only seen in magazines or driving past him in the city. His first thought was to keep going. Rich people had phones, right? They could call for help. Besides, he was already running late with his deliveries. His boss, Mr. Chen, had warned him last week about being slow. One more complaint and he might lose this job. And Daniel couldn't afford to lose another job. But then he saw movement inside the car. A small face pressed against the window. A child, maybe 7 or 8 years old. The little girl was looking out at the rain with wide, scared eyes. Daniel's heart sank. He thought about his own little brother, Tommy, who was about the same age. What if his family was stuck somewhere in weather like this? He'd want someone to stop and help. He made a decision. Pulling his bicycle to the side of the road, Daniel got off and walked toward the car. The rain was so loud he had to knock hard on the window to be heard. The man in the driver's seat jumped slightly startled. He looked at Daniel with suspicious eyes at first. After all, it was late at night and they were on an empty road. Daniel stepped back and held up his hands to show he meant no harm. He pointed to the car and then made a questioning gesture. The man seemed to understand. He rolled down the window just a crack. "Are you folks okay?" Daniel shouted over the sound of the rain. "Do you need help?" The man studied Daniel for a moment. He took in the soaked delivery uniform, the beat-up bicycle, and the genuine concern on the young man's face. Something in Daniel's eyes must have convinced him because he rolled the window down further. "Our car overheated," the man explained. His voice was tired and frustrated. "We've been stuck here for almost an hour. My phone has no signal and my wife's battery died. We were heading to the city when the engine just gave up." Daniel looked at the steam still rising from under the hood. "Have you tried calling for a tow truck?" "Can't," the woman in the passenger seat said. She sounded worried. "Like my husband said, no signal out here." Daniel pulled out his own phone. It was an old model, scratched and dented from being dropped too many times. But it worked. He checked the signal. 2 bars. "Not great, but enough. I have some signal," he said. "Let me call for help." The man's face showed relief. "That would be wonderful. Thank you so much." Daniel was already dialing the number for the local towing service. He knew it by heart because his uncle worked there. While he waited for someone to pick up, he noticed the little girl in the back seat. She was shivering despite wearing a pretty pink jacket. The car's engine was off, which meant no heat. "Hello, this is Mike's Towing," a voice answered. "Hey, this is Daniel. I'm out on Highway 15 about 2 miles past the old Wilson farm. There's a family here with a broken-down car. Can you send someone? In this weather?" "Man, I don't know. We're pretty backed up." Daniel felt his stomach drop. "Please, there's a little kid here. They've been stuck for over an hour." There was a pause. All right. For you, Danny boy. But it's gonna take at least an hour and a half. Maybe 2 with these roads. Thank you. I owe you one." Daniel hung up and walked back to the car window. Good news and bad news. Good news is a tow truck is coming. Bad news is it'll be about an hour and a half, maybe more. The man sighed heavily. "Well, that's better than nothing." "Thank you, young man. How much do I owe you for the phone call?" "Nothing," Daniel said quickly. "Don't worry about it." "No, really. You've used your minutes to help us," Daniel almost laughed. Minutes? He had an old unlimited plan that cost him $15 a month. But he didn't say that. These people didn't need to know how little he had. "It's fine, really," Daniel insisted. Then he looked at the little girl again. She was still shivering. "Listen, you can't sit in a cold car for that long. There's a bus stop about 50 feet that way. It has a roof. Not much, but at least you'll be out of the rain a bit." The family looked at each other. The man seemed hesitant. "I don't know. We'd get soaked running over there." You're going to be waiting a while, Daniel pointed out. At least there you can stretch your legs. And the little one won't be as cold. The woman touched her husband's arm. He's right. Katie is already cold. We should move. Katie, so that was the little girl's name. She looked up at her parents with hopeful eyes. The decision was made. All right, the man agreed. Let's do it. Daniel acted quickly. He pulled off his delivery bag and put it under his raincoat to keep the food dry. Then he did something that surprised even himself. He took off his raincoat. Here, he said, passing it through the window to the woman. Put this over your daughter. It's not much, but it'll help. Oh no, we couldn't, the woman protested. You'll get even more wet, Daniel smiled. I'm already soaked through. Can't get much wetter. Besides, I'm used to it. She's not. The woman looked like she might cry. She took the raincoat with shaking hands. Thank you. Thank you so much. They all got out of the car. The man locked it quickly and they made a run for the bus stop. Daniel grabbed his bicycle and wheeled it along with them. The bus stop was small and not very good at keeping the rain out, but it was better than sitting in a cold car. Daniel helped them settle in. The little girl, Katie, was now wrapped in his raincoat. It was huge on her, but it was doing its job. She had stopped shivering as much. Her mother sat close to her, rubbing her arms to warm her up. The father stood nearby, looking uncomfortable and out of place. I'm Robert, the man said suddenly, extending his hand. This is my wife Linda and our daughter Katie. Daniel, he replied, shaking the offered hand. Robert's grip was firm, but his hand was soft, not the hands of someone who worked with them every day. What are you doing out in this weather, Daniel? Linda asked. Work, Daniel said simply, pointing to his delivery bag. I do food delivery. Still have a few orders to complete. Robert's eyes widened. You're working in this? They make you deliver in this storm? Daniel shrugged. Bills don't stop for bad weather. My mom needs her medicine and my brothers need to eat. So I work. The couple exchanged a glance. Something passed between them that Daniel couldn't quite read. You should go complete your deliveries, Robert said. We'll be fine now. You've done more than enough. But Daniel shook his head. The food's already late because I stopped. A few more minutes won't matter now. Besides, I can't leave you folks alone out here. What if something happens? But your job, Linda protested. We'll still be there tomorrow, Daniel said, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. You guys need someone here more than those customers need their lukewarm noodles. Katie giggled at that. It was the first sound Daniel had heard from her. Her mother smiled too, some of the worry leaving her face. They settled into an awkward silence. The rain continued to pour, drumming on the tin roof of the bus stop. Daniel checked his phone every few minutes, both for the time and to see if his uncle's towing service had called with an update. So, Daniel, Robert said after a while, tell us about yourself. What do you do besides delivery work? Daniel wasn't used to people asking about him. Usually he was invisible, just the guy who brought your food and left. Not much to tell, he said honestly. I work 3 jobs. Delivery in the evenings, stocking shelves at the supermarket early mornings, and weekend shifts at the gas station. Been doing it for about 2 years now since my dad passed away. Linda's hand went to her heart. I'm so sorry. It's okay, Daniel said, though it really wasn't. Someone had to step up. Mom got sick not long after Dad died. Some kind of immune thing the doctors can't figure out. She can't work anymore, so it's on me to take care of things. You have siblings? Robert asked. 2 younger brothers. Ben is 16 and Tommy is 8. Ben helps out when he can, but I make him focus on school. He's smart, really smart. Could probably get a scholarship if he keeps his grades up. And what about you? Linda asked gently. What about your dreams? Daniel laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Dreams are for people who can afford them. I'm just trying to make it through each day. Katie had been quiet this whole time, but now she spoke up. Her voice was small but clear. You're nice. Daniel looked down at her and smiled. A real smile this time. Thank you, Katie. You're pretty nice yourself. She hugged her stuffed rabbit closer. Daniel hadn't noticed she was carrying it before. It looked expensive, like everything else this family owned. Time crawled by. Daniel kept checking his phone. His boss had called twice and sent 4 messages. He knew he was in trouble. The customers whose food he was supposed to deliver had probably complained already. But every time he looked at this family, at little Katie wrapped in his raincoat, he knew he'd made the right choice. Finally, after what felt like forever, headlights appeared in the distance. The tow truck was coming. Daniel felt relief wash over him. He stood up and waved his arms to make sure the driver saw them. His Uncle Mike pulled up and got out. "Danny, what are you doing out here, kid?" "Long story," Daniel said. "These folks need a tow back to the city." Mike nodded and got to work. Robert went with him to sort out the car situation. Linda and Katie stayed at the bus stop with Daniel. "You're going to be in trouble at work, aren't you?" Linda asked quietly. Daniel shrugged. "Probably. But it's fine." "It's not fine," she said firmly. "You sacrificed your job to help strangers." "That's not fine." "That's extraordinary." Daniel didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. Robert came back a few minutes later. "Mike says he can tow us to the nearest service station. They're closed now, but we can deal with the car tomorrow. He's going to drop us at a hotel in the city." "That's good," Daniel said, genuinely relieved. "I'm glad you'll be somewhere safe tonight." Robert reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. He took out several bills. "Please take this, for your help and for the phone call, and for staying with us." Daniel held up his hands. "No, sir. I can't take your money." "Why not?" Robert asked, looking confused. "You've done so much for us." "Because that's not why I helped," Daniel explained. "I didn't stop because I wanted money. I stopped because you needed help. Taking money would make it feel like a transaction, and it wasn't. It was just one person helping another." Linda looked at him with tears in her eyes. "You're remarkable, you know that?" Daniel felt embarrassed. "I'm really not." Anyone would have done the same. "But they didn't," Robert said quietly. "We sat in that car for over an hour. At least a dozen vehicles passed us. Some even slowed down to look. But only you stopped. Only you helped." Katie suddenly pulled off Daniel's raincoat and handed it back to him. "Here, you need this. Keep it," Daniel said. "I have another one at home." He didn't, but she didn't need to know that. Katie shook her head. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her stuffed rabbit. It was a beautiful thing, probably handmade, with button eyes and a little red ribbon around its neck. "Here," she said, holding it out to Daniel. "This is Mr. Hoppy. He brings good luck. My grandma made him for me, and he's very special. But I want you to have him. For being so nice to us, and Katie, honey, you don't have to," Linda started to say. But Katie was determined. "Please take him. He'll protect you." Daniel felt a lump in his throat. He bent down to Katie's level. "Are you sure?" "He looks pretty important." Katie nodded seriously. "I'm sure. You need luck more than me." Daniel took the rabbit gently. "Thank you, Katie. I'll take good care of Mr. Hoppy, I promise." Linda pulled a business card from her purse. It was slightly damp from the rain, but still readable. She pressed it into Daniel's hand. "If you ever need anything," she said intently, "anything at all, please call this number. Promise me you will." Daniel looked at the card. It had a name and phone number, but the rest was too smudged to read. He pocketed it to be polite. "Thank you. I will." He knew he wouldn't. People said things like that all the time. They meant well in the moment, but they didn't really expect you to follow through. And Daniel had too much pride to ask rich strangers for help anyway. Mike called out that he was ready to go. The family gathered their things. Robert shook Daniel's hand one more time. Linda hugged him, which surprised him. And Katie waved goodbye, smiling now. "Take care of yourself, Daniel," Robert said. "And remember, you're going places. Young men with character like yours always do." Daniel watched as they climbed into Mike's truck. He waved as they drove away, their taillights disappearing into the rainy night. Then he was alone again at the bus stop, holding a stuffed rabbit and a business card. He looked at his phone. 7:23 p.m. His boss had stopped calling, which was somehow worse than the calls. The food in his delivery bag was definitely cold now. Those customers would complain for sure. He might not have a job tomorrow. But as Daniel climbed back on his bicycle and started pedaling home through the rain, he felt something unexpected. Peace. He'd done the right thing. No matter what happened with his job, he'd done what his father would have wanted him to do. He'd helped people who needed help. The stuffed rabbit sat in his delivery bag, peeking out at him. Daniel smiled despite everything. Mr. Hoppy was going to need to work some serious magic if he was really a good luck charm. Because right now Daniel's luck didn't seem great. He had no idea how wrong he was about that. No idea that the business card in his pocket and the family he'd just helped would change his life forever. All he knew was that he was cold, wet, probably jobless tomorrow and had to figure out how to explain to his mother why he was so late. But that stuffed rabbit seemed to be smiling at him through the rain. And somehow Daniel felt like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. Walter smiled at Linda from where he stood by the stove. "I hope you don't mind. I found some flour, eggs, and milk. Couldn't help myself, mind?" Linda wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Those ingredients were supposed to last the rest of the week, but seeing Amy's happy face, she couldn't bring herself to care. "Not at all," she managed to say. "Thank you." She sat down next to Amy, who was practically bouncing in her chair with excitement. "He knows magic tricks too, Mama. Show her, Mr. Walter." Walter chuckled as he plated the pancakes and brought them to the table. From his pocket, he pulled out a worn deck of cards. His hands moved with surprising speed for someone his age, shuffling and cutting the deck with practiced ease. "Pick a card, any card," he said to Amy, fanning them out. Amy chose one, looked at it with serious concentration, and showed it to Linda while hiding it from Walter. "The 7 of Hearts." Walter had her put it back in the deck, shuffled dramatically, and then pulled a card from behind Amy's ear. "The 7 of Hearts," Amy squealed with delight, clapping her hands. Even Linda found herself smiling, really smiling, for the first time in weeks. They ate breakfast together, and Walter told them stories about traveling when he was younger. Nothing too specific, Linda noticed, but entertaining enough to keep Amy captivated. After breakfast, Walter insisted on washing the dishes. Linda protested, but he waved her off. "You gave me shelter and warmth. The least I can do is clean a few plates." While he worked at the sink, Linda got Amy ready for school. She braided her daughter's hair, packed the small lunch she'd prepared the night before, and made sure she had her homework. All the while, she kept glancing at Walter, this strange man who had appeared in their lives like something out of a fairy tale. When it was time for Amy to leave for school, she surprised them both by hugging Walter. "Will you be here when I get home?" she asked hopefully. Walter knelt down to her level, his expression kind but honest. "I'm afraid not, sweetheart. I need to catch that bus, remember? But I'll never forget your smile." Amy's face fell a little, but she nodded. She was used to disappointment, Linda thought with a pang of sadness. Too used to it. After Amy left for school, Linda had to get ready for her morning shift at the diner. She felt awkward suddenly, alone with Walter in her small apartment. "I have to leave for work in about 20 minutes, she said. "You're welcome to stay until you need to catch your bus. Just pull the door closed behind you when you go. It locks automatically." "Thank you, Linda," Walter said. He was looking around the apartment now, his eyes taking in details she wished he wouldn't notice. The stack of unpaid bills on the counter, the eviction notice stuck to the refrigerator with a magnet, the medicine bottles for Amy's asthma that cost more than Linda wanted to think about. She saw him looking and felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "It's not always this bad," she lied. "Just going through a rough patch." Walter didn't say anything, but his eyes were sad, understanding, like he knew she was lying but was too polite to call her out on it. Linda grabbed her purse and her jacket. Before she left, Walter stopped her. "Linda, could I ask you something?" "Sure. Could you write down your full name and address for me? I'd like to send you a proper thank you card. You really saved me last night." Linda hesitated. Giving out her address to a stranger seemed foolish. But then again, she'd already let him sleep in her home. What difference did it make now? She found a scrap of paper and wrote down her information, her handwriting shaky from tiredness. Walter took the paper and carefully folded it, putting it in his pocket. Then he did something unexpected. He reached into his other pocket and pulled out a $20 bill. "Please take this," he said, holding it out to her. "No," Linda said immediately, backing away. "No, I can't. You don't owe me anything." "I want to," Walter insisted. "Please. For Amy. Buy her something special." "Really, I can't." "You gave me something priceless last night," Walter said softly. "You gave me kindness when you had every reason not to. You reminded me that there's still good in this world. $20 is nothing compared to that, please." Linda's eyes filled with tears again. She seemed to cry so easily these days, like her emotions were right there at the surface, ready to spill over at any moment. She took the $20 with shaking hands. "Thank you," she whispered. Walter smiled. "No, thank you." He stepped forward and hugged her, a gentle, grandfatherly hug that made Linda feel safe for just a moment. When he pulled back, he said, Take care of yourself and that beautiful daughter of yours." Linda left. For work in a daze, the $20 bill clutched in her hand. As she walked to the bus stop, she thought about what she'd buy for Amy. Maybe some new crayons. Amy loved to draw, but her crayons were down to little stubs. The next 2 weeks passed in their usual blur of work and worry. Linda picked up extra shifts when she could, trying desperately to scrape together the money for rent. She kept Walter's $20 bill in her wallet, unable to bring herself to spend it. It felt important somehow, like a good luck charm. Amy asked about Mr. Walter a few times, wondering if he'd ever come back. Linda told her probably not, that he had his own life to live. But she thought about him too, more often than she'd expected. She wondered where he'd been going that day, where he was now, if he was safe and warm. It was a Thursday afternoon, 2 weeks after Walter had stayed with them, when everything changed. Linda had just gotten home from her morning shift and was looking through the mail, most of it bills she couldn't pay. There was one envelope that stood out, though. It was big and fancy, made of thick, cream-colored paper. Her name and address were written in elegant handwriting. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a letter, written in the same elegant script, and a check. Linda's eyes went to the check first, and her knees nearly buckled. $50,000. $50,000 made out to Linda Hayes. She sat down hard on the couch, her heart pounding so loud she could hear it in her ears. With shaking hands, she unfolded the letter. "Dear Linda," it began, "I have thought about you and Amy every day since that rainy night. Your kindness, offered, freely despite having so little yourself, touched my heart in ways I cannot fully express. I know you are struggling. I saw the eviction notice, I saw the medical bills, I saw a mother working herself to the bone to provide for her daughter. Please accept this check as a thank you, and as a way for me to help ease your burdens. You deserve so much more than this world has given you. Use this money to catch up on your bills, to breathe a little easier, to give Amy some of the things you wish you could give her. You are a remarkable person, Linda Hayes. Never forget that. With deepest gratitude, Walter." Linda read the letter 3 times, then 4, then 5. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. This couldn't be real. People didn't just give away $50,000. This had to be some kind of scam, or a mistake, or a dream. She pulled out her phone and called the bank number printed on the check. Her voice shook as she asked if the check was legitimate. The person on the other end put her on hold for what felt like hours. When they came back, they confirmed it. The check was real. It would clear. Linda dropped the phone and burst into tears. Real, ugly crying that came from somewhere deep in her chest. She cried for all the nights she'd laid awake worrying about money. She cried for every time she'd had to tell Amy they couldn't afford something. She cried from relief and disbelief and overwhelming gratitude. When she finally pulled herself together, she looked at the letter again. Walter. Who was this man? She tried to think back to their conversations, looking for clues. He'd been vague about his life, about where he was from. She didn't even know his last name. Linda grabbed her laptop, the old one that took forever to start up and only worked half the time. She typed in Walter and $50,000 gift, but got nothing useful. How could she find him? She had to thank him properly. She had to know why. The next day, still in shock, Linda deposited the check. She kept expecting someone to tell her it was a mistake, that the money wasn't really hers. But the transaction went through smoothly. She paid her back rent immediately, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders that she'd been carrying for months. She paid off the medical bills. She bought groceries, real groceries, filling her cart without checking prices for the first time in years. But she couldn't stop thinking about Walter. She needed to find him. She needed to understand. In a moment of desperation, she called the local news station. She told them her story, about the kind old man who'd stayed one night and then changed her life. She thought maybe if they ran the story, Walter would see it and reach out. The news station loved it. They sent a reporter to interview her that same day. Linda sat on her couch, the same couch Walter had slept on, and told the story of that rainy night. She showed them the letter, though she kept the check amount private. The news segment aired on Friday evening. It was a short piece, just 3 minutes long, but the reporter had done a good job. They called it "The Kindness of Strangers" and showed Linda talking about helping Walter that rainy night. They didn't mention the exact amount of money, just said he'd sent a generous gift that had changed her life. The segment ended with Linda looking into the camera and saying, "Walter, if you're watching this, thank you. And please let me know you're okay." Linda didn't expect much to come from it. Maybe Walter would see it and call the station. Maybe he wouldn't. At least she'd tried. She made dinner for Amy, helped her with homework, and got her ready for bed. It was a normal Friday night except for the feeling of hope sitting in Linda's chest, fragile as a soap bubble. Saturday morning, Linda woke up to her phone ringing, and ringing, and ringing. By the time she stumbled out of bed, she had 17 missed calls and dozens of text messages. Her email inbox was overflowing. Her hands shook as she tried to understand what was happening. The news segment had been picked up by a national network. It was everywhere. On their website, on social media, being shared thousands of times. Linda's face was on her screen over and over again. And the comments, oh God, there were so many comments. Most were supportive, people saying how touching the story was. But some were mean, accusing her of making it up or trying to scam people for money. Linda felt sick. This wasn't what she'd wanted. She'd just wanted to find Walter, to thank him. Now the whole country was watching her. Her phone rang again, a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello? Is this Linda Hayes?" A woman's voice, professional and crisp. "Yes, this is Linda. Ms. Hayes, my name is Patricia Chen. I'm a journalist with the National Tribune. I'd like to talk to you about Walter." Linda's heart jumped. "Do you know him? Do you know where he is?" There was a pause on the other end. "Ms. Hayes, I think you should sit down." Linda sat on the edge of her bed, Amy still sleeping peacefully in the next room. "What is it? Is Walter okay?" "Walter is fine," Patricia said. "But I need to ask you something first. The man who stayed with you, did he give you a last name?" "No, just Walter." "Can you describe him to me?" Linda did, giving as many details as she could remember. The silver hair, the kind eyes, the way his hands had moved when he did card tricks for Amy. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Ms. Hayes, I believe the man who stayed with you was Walter Fairchild." The name meant nothing to Linda. "Okay. You don't know who Walter Fairchild is?" "No, should I?" Patricia made a sound that might have been a laugh or a gasp. "Ms. Hayes, Walter Fairchild is one of the richest men in America. He sold his technology company 3 months ago for over $2 billion. Linda's brain stopped working. She heard the words, but they didn't make sense. $2 billion. Billion with a B. That was movie star money. That was beyond anything she could imagine. "That can't be right," Linda said. "The Walter I met was just a regular old man. He was sitting in the rain. He needed help." "Mr. Fairchild is known for doing this," Patricia interrupted. "He travels around the country, often disguised or without identifying himself. He wants to see how real people live, how they treat strangers. It's his way of deciding where to donate his money." Linda felt like the room was spinning. "You're saying that Walter, the man who slept on my couch and made pancakes for my daughter, is a billionaire?" "Yes. And Ms. Hayes, your story has gone viral. Everyone wants to know about the single mother who helped a billionaire without knowing who he was. Can I ask, how much did he give you?" Linda's protective instincts kicked in. "I don't think that's anyone's business." "Of course I understand. But Ms. Hayes, based on Mr. Fairchild's history, $50,000 would be very modest for him. He usually gives much more when someone truly touches his heart." Linda's mind was reeling. She thanked Patricia and hung up, then immediately started searching online for Walter Fairchild. And there he was. Dozens of articles, hundreds of photos. Her Walter in expensive suits, shaking hands with presidents and CEOs. Walter at charity events. Walter accepting awards. Walter announcing his company's sale for an amount of money Linda couldn't even comprehend. She read everything she could find. Walter Fairchild was 73 years old. He'd started his tech company in his garage 40 years ago and built it into a giant. He was known for being private, almost reclusive. His wife had died 5 years ago from cancer. They'd never had children. He donated millions to charity every year but rarely appeared in public. And he'd sat at her kitchen table. He'd slept on her worn-out couch. He'd made pancakes for Amy with her cheap flour and her dollar store syrup. Linda's phone rang again, and again, and again. Reporters, all of them wanting interviews, wanting her story, wanting pictures. She stopped answering. She felt violated somehow, like her private moment of kindness had been turned into a circus. She kept Amy home from school on Monday. There were news vans outside their apartment building. Reporters camped on the sidewalk. Neighbors were being interviewed. Mrs. Chen from next door was on TV, talking about what a good person Linda was. Linda watched it all from her window, feeling like she was trapped. By Tuesday, it was worse. The story was everywhere. Social media had exploded with it. People were calling her a hero. People were calling her a fake. People were analyzing every word of the news interview, looking for hidden meanings. Someone had found her Facebook page and was sharing her photos. Amy's photos, that was the last straw. Linda made her Facebook private and stopped looking at social media entirely. She just wanted everything to go back to normal. She wanted to go to work, pick up Amy from school, make dinner. She wanted her quiet, invisible life back. But Wednesday brought something unexpected. A courier arrived at her door, managing to get past the reporters somehow. He had an envelope for her. Inside was a simple note. Linda, I'm sorry for the chaos. That was never my intention. Please come meet me tomorrow at 2 p.m. The address is below. Come alone or bring Amy. Whatever makes you comfortable. Walter. The address was for a coffee shop on the other side of town. A quiet little place Linda had never been to, but had passed a few times. She stared at the note for hours, reading it over and over. Walter wanted to meet her. Walter, the billionaire. Walter, who had changed her life with a single check. She called Mrs. Chen and asked if she could watch Amy the next day. She didn't tell her why. She couldn't explain it, didn't want to. Thursday afternoon, Linda took 2 buses to get to the coffee shop. Wearing the nicest outfit she owned, a pair of black pants and a blue blouse that Amy said made her look pretty. Her heart was pounding as she pushed open the door to the coffee shop. It was small and cozy, with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. There were only a few people inside, and at first she didn't see Walter. Then a man in the corner booth stood up and waved. It was him, but different somehow. He was wearing regular clothes, jeans and a sweater, but he carried himself differently now that she knew who he was. Linda, he said warmly, coming to meet her. Thank you for coming. Please sit. She sat across from him, her hands clasped tight in her lap. She didn't know what to say. All the questions she'd had, all the things she'd wanted to tell him, they all jumbled together in her head. Walter ordered them coffee and waited until the waitress left before speaking. I owe you an apology, he said. I never meant for any of this to become public. I should have known better. You lied to me, Linda said quietly. It wasn't an accusation, just a fact. I didn't lie, Walter said gently. I just didn't tell you everything. My name is Walter. I did miss my bus, though I'll admit that was intentional. Everything else, our conversation, your kindness, that was all real. Why? Linda asked. Why pretend to be someone you're not? Walter was quiet for a moment, his hands wrapped around his coffee cup. Because I wanted the truth, he finally said. Do you know what it's like, Linda, to be very wealthy? People treat you differently. They want things from you. They're kind because they hope to get something in return. I never know if someone likes me for who I am or for what I can give them. Linda thought about that. She'd never had to worry about people wanting her money. She'd never had money for anyone to want. After my wife died, Walter continued, I felt very alone. I have all this money, all this success, and no one to share it with. So I started traveling. I wanted to see how people really lived. I wanted to know if genuine kindness still existed in the world. The kind that expects nothing in return. And you found it with me, Linda said softly, starting to understand. Walter nodded, his eyes bright with emotion. You had $12 in your wallet, Linda. I saw it when you paid Mrs. Chen. $12 until payday. You were behind on rent, struggling to afford your daughter's medicine, and still you took in a stranger. You gave me your food, your warmth, your home. You gave me something money can't buy. Linda felt tears starting again. She seemed to cry so much lately. Anyone would have done the same thing. No, Walter said firmly. They wouldn't have. I've been doing this for 2 years now, traveling to different cities, putting myself in situations where I need help. Do you know how many people have walked past me? Hundreds, maybe thousands. Some told me to go to a shelter. Some offered to call the police. Most just pretended they didn't see me at all. You're only the third person who's invited me into their home. What happened with the other two? Linda asked. Walter smiled sadly. One was a young couple in Seattle. They helped me, but I could tell they were uncomfortable. They kept their valuables locked up, watched me carefully. They were kind but wary. The other was an elderly woman in Texas. She was wonderful, reminded me of my wife. I helped her set up a trust fund for her grandchildren before she passed away last year. And now me, Linda said. And now you, Walter agreed. You who had every reason to say no, to protect yourself and your daughter. But you didn't. You saw someone in need and you helped. That rainy night, sitting in your kitchen listening to you talk about your struggles, I was reminded why I made my money in the first place. Not to hoard it, not to buy things I don't need, but to help people like you. Good people who deserve a break. Linda wiped at her eyes. The $50,000, it's already changed my life. I paid off everything I owed. Amy and I have food in the refrigerator. I can sleep at night without worrying about eviction. You've given me more than you know. Walter reached across the table and took her hand. His skin was warm, papery with age. Linda, that $50,000 was just the beginning. Linda's heart skipped. What do you mean? I mean that I've been thinking about you and Amy constantly these past 2 weeks. I did some research. I know Amy has asthma, that her medications are expensive. I know you work 2 jobs and barely see her. I know you're doing your best, but you shouldn't have to struggle this hard. Walter, you've already done so much. Please let me finish. Walter said gently. I don't have children of my own. My wife and I tried for years, but it wasn't meant to be. When I met Amy, saw her smile, heard her laugh, something in my heart woke up. She reminded me of what matters. And you, Linda, you reminded me that there are still heroes in this world. Regular, everyday heroes who don't expect recognition or reward. Linda didn't know what to say. She just squeezed his hand and waited. I've set up an education trust for Amy, Walter continued. It will cover everything. Private school if you want it. Though I hear the public school in the Riverside district is excellent. College, graduate school, whatever she wants to pursue. She'll never have to worry about student loans or choosing a career based on money instead of passion. Linda's breath caught in her throat. Walter, I can't accept. There's more, Walter said. I know you've been renting that apartment. I bought the building. You what? I bought the building. It was easy. The owner was looking to sell anyway. I'm transferring the deed for your apartment to your name. It's yours, Linda, free and clear. No more rent, no more landlords. Just a home for you and Amy. Linda couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. The coffee shop seemed to tilt around her. This is too much. This is way too much. I don't deserve. You deserve everything, Walter said intensely. And there's one more thing. If you're willing. Linda laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. One more thing? How could there possibly be more? Walter smiled. I'm starting a new foundation. It's going to be dedicated to helping single parents. People who are working hard but can't seem to get ahead. I need someone to run it. Someone who understands what it's like to struggle. Someone who has compassion and integrity. I need you, Linda. Me? Linda's voice came out as a squeak. I don't know anything about running a foundation. I'm a waitress. You're so much more than that, Walter said. You're a mother, a survivor, a good person. Those are the qualifications that matter. I'll hire people to teach you the business side. I'll hire accountants and lawyers and advisors. But I need someone at the top who has heart. Someone who will use this money to truly help people, not just hand out checks and feel good about themselves. Walter, Linda couldn't finish the sentence. It was too big, too overwhelming, too impossible. The salary is $200,000 a year, Walter added, plus benefits, full health insurance for you and Amy, dental, vision, a retirement plan. You'd work normal hours 9 to 5, so you could actually spend time with your daughter. Watch her grow up. $200,000. Linda couldn't even imagine that much money. She made barely $30,000 a year working 2 jobs. $200,000 was rich people money. It was security and stability and everything she'd dreamed about but never thought possible. Why? She whispered. Why me? You could hire anyone. Someone qualified, someone with experience. Because when I told you I'd missed my bus, you believed me. When I was cold and wet and alone, you saw me as a person, not a problem. You made me pancakes, Linda. With the last of your food, you made me breakfast. That's who I want running my foundation. Someone who gives even when they have nothing left to give. Linda looked down at their joined hands. Walter's age spotted and wrinkled, hers rough from work and washing dishes. Two different worlds, connected by one rainy night and an act of simple kindness. I need to think about it, Linda said finally. This is all so much, too much. I need to make sure it's real, that I'm not dreaming. Take all the time you need, Walter said. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be in town for another week, staying at the Riverside Hotel. Here's my direct number. He pulled out a business card and slid it across the table. Call me when you're ready, or if you have questions, or if you just need to talk. Linda took the card with shaking hands. Walter Fairchild, it said in simple black letters. Below that, a phone number and email address. No fancy titles or company names, just a name and a way to reach him. They finished their coffee and talked about lighter things. Walter asked about Amy, about her school, her interests. Linda found herself relaxing, remembering this was the same man who'd sat at her kitchen table and made her daughter laugh. Billionaire or not, he was still just Walter. When they finally stood to leave, Walter hugged her again. Thank you, Linda, for everything. You gave me hope that night. I hope I can give you the same. Linda watched him walk away, disappearing into the afternoon crowd. She stood there for a long time, holding his business card, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. She took the bus home in a daze. The reporters were still outside her building, but they felt less important now. She pushed through them without answering questions and locked her door behind her. Mrs. Chen brought Amy home a few minutes later. Mama. Amy ran to her, wrapping her small arms around Linda's waist. Mrs. Chen let me help make dumplings. Can we make dumplings tomorrow? Sure, baby, Linda said, hugging her daughter tight. We can make whatever you want. That night, after Amy was asleep, Linda sat at her kitchen table and looked at the business card. She thought about everything Walter had offered, the money for Amy's education, the apartment, the job. It was everything she'd ever wanted and more than she'd ever dreamed possible. But was it real? Could she trust it? She pulled out her laptop and researched Walter Fairchild some more. She read articles about his charitable work, about the millions he'd given away over the years. She read interviews where he talked about wanting to make a real difference, about looking for authentic people to help him distribute his wealth. She read about his late wife, Catherine, who had been a social worker before she got sick, who had dedicated her life to helping others. And slowly, Linda started to believe. This wasn't a scam or a trick. This was real. Walter was real. And he was offering her a chance to change not just her own life, but the lives of countless other people struggling just like she had been. Linda didn't sleep much that night. Her mind kept spinning with possibilities and fears. What if she failed? What if she took the job and messed everything up? She was just a waitress from a small apartment. Who was she to run a foundation with? Millions of dollars? But then she thought about all the times she'd been scared before. Scared when Amy's father left. Scared when she had to work 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. Scared every time Amy got sick and she had to choose between medication and groceries. She'd been scared so many times, and she'd survived. She'd done more than survive. She'd kept her daughter safe and happy and loved. Maybe that was exactly what Walter needed. Someone who knew what it was like to be afraid. Someone who understood what struggling families really needed, not what rich donors thought they needed. By the time the sun came up, Linda had made her decision. She called Walter at 8 in the morning, her hands shaking as she dialed the number on his card. He answered on the second ring. Walter? It's Linda. If the offer is still open, I accept. There was a pause. Then she heard what sounded like a relieved laugh. Linda, I'm so glad, so very glad. Can we meet today? There's a lot to discuss. They met at his hotel, in a private conference room he'd reserved. This time there were other people there. A lawyer, an accountant, and a woman Walter introduced as Margaret. who would be training Linda on foundation management. The next few hours were overwhelming. They talked about salary and benefits and logistics. They talked about the foundation's mission and goals. They showed Linda the office space Walter had already rented, a beautiful suite of rooms in downtown with windows overlooking the park. They walked her through budgets and grant applications and fundraising strategies. Linda's head was spinning, but Margaret seemed to sense her anxiety. "Don't worry," the older woman said kindly. "You'll learn everything step by step. Nobody expects you to know it all on day one." "What if I mess up?" Linda asked quietly. Walter, who had been listening from across the table, spoke up. "Then you'll fix it. Linda, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for heart. I've worked with plenty of experienced nonprofit directors. Some were excellent. Some were more concerned with looking good than doing good. You care about people. That's more valuable than any amount of experience." They arranged for Linda to start in 2 weeks. That would give her time to quit her jobs at the diner and the grocery store, to get Amy settled with the idea of their new life, to wrap her mind around everything that was changing. When Linda finally left the hotel that afternoon, she had a folder full of documents, a company credit card in her name, and a feeling in her chest she barely recognized. Hope. Real solid hope for the future. The next morning, Linda gave notice at both her jobs. Her managers were surprised but supportive, especially when she told them she'd been offered a position at a new nonprofit. She didn't mention Walter or the money or any of the crazy details. She just said she was moving on to something better. The hardest part was telling Amy. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that your entire life is about to change? Linda sat her down after school one day and tried her best. "Remember, Mr. Walter, the nice man who stayed with us?" Amy's face lit up. "The one who did magic tricks." "Yes, him. Well, it turns out Mr. Walter has a very important job, and he wants Mommy to help him with it." "What kind of job?" "He's going to help people who don't have very much money, people like us. And he wants me to be in charge of deciding how to help them." Amy thought about this seriously. "Like how we helped Mr. Walter?" "Exactly like that. That's a good job, Mommy." Linda hugged her daughter tight. "I think so too, baby." The next 2 weeks flew by in a blur of preparation. The deed to her apartment came through, and Linda cried when she held the paper that said the home was officially hers. She wouldn't have believed it if she couldn't touch the document, see her name printed in legal type. Margaret came by several times to help Linda prepare for her new role. They went through case studies of successful nonprofits and unsuccessful ones. They talked about what made people trust a charity, what made them want to donate. Margaret taught her about transparency and accountability, about making sure every dollar was spent wisely. "The most important thing," Margaret said during one of their sessions, "is to never forget why you're doing this. It's not about the paperwork or the meetings or the reports. It's about people, real people with real struggles. The moment you forget that, you've lost." Linda understood that in her bones. She'd been that person with real struggles. She still was in many ways, even with Walter's help. The fear of poverty didn't leave you quickly. The habit of checking price tags, of stretching every dollar, of worrying about money. Those things were part of her now. Her first day at the new job was terrifying. Linda put on the new clothes she'd bought, professional pants and blazers that felt strange after years of diner uniforms. She dropped Amy off at school, kissed her goodbye, and took the bus downtown to her new office. The space was beautiful, bright and open, with a small staff of 4 people Walter had already hired. There was Jennifer, who handled finances, Marcus, who managed grant applications, Deshawn, who worked on community outreach, and Rachel, who handled administrative tasks. They all greeted Linda warmly, without a hint of judgment about her lack of experience. "We're all new to this," Jennifer told her over coffee that first morning. "Walter hired each of us because of our passion, not just our resumes. We're going to figure this out together." Walter came by that afternoon to see how Linda was settling in. He brought flowers for her desk and a stuffed bear for Amy. "How's it going?" he asked. "I'm overwhelmed," Linda admitted. "But good overwhelmed, if that makes sense." "It makes perfect sense." Walter smiled. You're going to do amazing things here, Linda. I believe that with everything in me. The first few months were a learning curve. Linda made mistakes, lots of them. She approved a grant that turned out to be for a fraudulent organization. She struggled with the technology systems. She accidentally sent an email to the wrong person. But each time she messed up, her team helped her fix it. And slowly, she started to get the hang of things.